Happy Friday, everyone, and we're live once again. Atilia will be back next week to join me for our group sessions here, but until then, you just get me. Today, we're talking about a really interesting topic that comes up more and more in business ownership communities and counseling practice communities here, and that specifically is this idea of passive income. What is it? How do you get it? How do you get more of it? And then ultimately, how do you get the ball rolling and create it for the very first time for yourself? The harsh reality of your guys' industry is that whether you own a solo practice or even a group practice, you're largely compensated on the quantity of hours that you work, right? You have to trade. It's the literal definition of, trading time for money. You will not get paid unless you show up and do a one-on-one session with a client in most scenarios. And even if you own a group practice, for instance, that's the case with the people that you employ, and you as a group practice owner might still have to do one-on-one sessions to keep the bills running, to earn the level of income that you want and need. And, it would be the exact opposite, that process I just described, of passive. That is a significant amount of effort to build, run, and manage the business, much less fulfill the service. And so the road to passive income as a counselor is already fraught with a lot of difficulties and is not just an easy shoe-in answer. So I want to segment our conversation on this on a couple different fronts. Number one is there are opportunities for passive income, or there are opportunities for simplified income that are based off of your counseling skills and your industry specific knowledge. And then there's opportunity for passive or simplified income outside the industry. And we're going to talk about both categories. I will start with one and move into the other pretty shortly here. The other big thing that I want to address as we get into this topic of passive income, or what I would better call simplified income. Simple income is income that you do not have to spend a lot of time or energy to procure. It's allowing either your mind, your money, or your previous effort to pay future dividends. So what passive income is actually saying is not that it's just passive. To some degree or another, we can't create the false expectation that we will just make money by doing nothing, right? And I think to an extent we all know that, but I think a lot of you think that passive income is possible, or your definition of passive income is more shallow than the reality of it. You have to create an astronomical amount of leverage in an area of your life for that to have a long-term trickle effect. What you can do sooner is to simplify your income. So if you make $100,000 now, and you want to make $100,000 next year, you could say, how many hours and how much effort did I put in to make that $100,000? And what are areas that I can massively reduce that amount of effort and pursue opportunities to replace that income slowly with less and less effort, all the way down to the point where it mostly looks passive. But at the end of the day, there's no amount of money that you're going to be able to charge for one-on-one sessions, for as long as you do one-on-one sessions as a therapy mode, that can ever become passive. So what are your options? Well, let's start outside the space. Some of the most popular answers is, quote unquote, investing that income. You invest it into the stock market, right? You invest it with your 401k. You invest it into real estate that pays dividends. You invest it into other businesses, potentially. You put it in, high interest yield savings account. Like, there are options that will grow that cash, but ultimately still require management, right? Having a real estate portfolio, having a secondary non-counseling business, having to pay a financial firm or financial advisor, or manage your own stock portfolio, all takes time. And you need more money in a lot of those situations to to have the leverage you need to generate a significant amount of income. The S&P 500 typically returns somewhere between 6 and 12% on any given year, depending on whether it's a bear market or bull market. And that means for every $100,000 that you have in that market, your typical potential upside is only about $6,000, right? So to actually generate a sizable amount of new revenue or new passive income from an investment like that, you need hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, in those markets to produce a measurable effect on your day-to-day living and your day-to-day income. And that's, a whole different retirement conversation and other things. So it's going to be more important for us to probably focus on elements that you've already spent years and years developing, which is your skill set and your industry knowledge in the therapy space, and pursuing opportunities to reduce the amount of times it takes to create income or create massive income opportunities. And I'm going to go in order for a couple of these opportunities that you have in front of you. Number one is if you're a solo practice, the next many times logical step is if you have administrative skill sets is to go the group practice route, is to go out, start a larger business and hire 3, 5, 10, 20 other therapists and build a group practice. What that will afford you to do is scenario number one is it will allow you to be able to buy other people's management of your business. You can hire a practice manager. You can hire an admin assistant. You can get things off of your plate, which will massively reduce the amount of time it takes to have that income come your direction. I know many group practice owners who have between $1.5 million and $5 million, or even some that are doing $10 million plus, and they've essentially exited seeing any day-to-day sessions, as well as they have exited really any large-scale management because they either have a CEO in place or they have a practice manager in place. Now they only have to manage one person. So you've simplified your entire role down to managing the one person that reports to you, and they manage the entire practice, but you can afford to pay a high-level employee or a CEO to generate a simplified income from that now asset, and you own the business instead of run the business, right? That is probably your fastest route, most traditional route to massively increase income in this space. Last week we did a live on going from solo to a group practice this year, and there are some other options that are on the table for you, but that's really where it starts, and those are the fundamental steps. The other thing that you have to think about is other ways, whether you're a solo or group practice, that you can leverage economies of scale or high number opportunities instead of this one-to-one method. You hear a lot about coaching programs. That certainly can be an element where you're doing group coaching or group processing. How that translates in a clinical sense is you can do groups or group workshops. EMDR intensives are a really good example where you can charge 1, 2, 10, 20 times your typical session rate for a 2, 3, 4 hour intensive, and sometimes even do that intensive, whether that's EMDR or marriage intensive or otherwise, at a much higher rate. Consulting services, spending an hour with a corporate team or spending a half a day on, emotional intelligence for CEOs or business owners or other things in that capacity that you really have the capacity to dig into. Those can be higher leverage opportunities where instead of making $150 or $250 or $350 a session, you can charge $1,000, $2,000, $10,000 for the same hour of work, right? I personally charge $500 per one-on-one session that anyone ever has with me. You can get access to me in other formats for significantly less, but are much higher leverage of time. Earlier this week, we had a coaching call. We had over 10 practices on a single group coaching call, right? And they were all paying for a seat to be on that call. And I was compensated accordingly for my time. And they were all getting massive value from the time that they were spending, together. So think of ways to leverage that process so you can spend less time up front on delivering the service and create a more simplified process. And here's the thing. The longer you want to receive a dividend or the longer you want to see income coming in from that opportunity, the harder we probably have to work. The bigger the brand has to be, right? The larger the asset or the certain type of product we have to sell. And specifically, your path to success is twofold. Number one, if you truly want passive income, is number one is having a turnkey product that doesn't take any time to deliver, right? So if one person buys it, it doesn't cost you any more time to deliver that product to the person. And that's what's wrong with your current product as a counselor, is it always costs 30 minutes to an hour or more to deliver your current product, right? So if you have a digital product like a course, for instance, once that course is built, you might have your time invested into selling and marketing that. And if you have enough money, you can hire people to help you do that. You can always sell that course with an immediate instant access and that not adding any incremental time to deliver the product, right? That's option one, is a product that requires no time to deliver. Your only other option for passive income or simplified income long term, if you really want to get free from it, is to have a large enough business where you can afford to hire other people to not just run the things, but make and manage large scale business decisions, right? It's not enough that you just have someone who takes the phone calls in your group practice so you don't have to do that element, or have a supervisor to manage all your associates, right? You also would need a full-on practice manager or CEO if you no longer wanted to make the CEO decisions. But that practice would have to be big enough to have enough on the table to pay a quality person to make those decisions for you and own it as an asset, and not have to operate the business or the function yourself. And that's how all good businesses are built, is people own them and people run them. And the best and the biggest businesses are run by different people than who own the business. So if you're thinking about your route to success, and it's what I call the stair step method, and what we're going to end on today. You have two options. You can either reduce the amount of time it takes for you to deliver your service for the product, or deliver your product, right? And work on an element that is that, right? I can deliver a group session to 15 people in a single hour versus have to do 15 hours of one-on-one. Or I can deliver a course to 1,000 people instantaneously, right? And there are versions and options and commerce in that, right? That require no issue. And then there's my business is big enough that I can afford to pay someone else to not just do the function, but also do the strategy and big business decision making, and go in that order, right? First, it's hiring your first assistant, and then it's hiring your first practice manager, and then it's hiring your first CEO if needed. And you have to stair step into it and reduce, because no one's going to do it for you. Your business isn't going to build itself unless you have massive amounts of cash. You're not going to be able to pay someone to build your business for you. You're not going to be able to pay for someone to build your marketing for you and do your marketing strategy. So you need to take responsibility of this passive income concept and say, what can I do to insert myself in this process now and be the one that builds this massive leverage, and either be working on a product that doesn't require a lot of time to deliver, or be building a big enough business that can afford to one day pay people to fulfill my role. And that's the game, and that's the method to passive income inside the industry. Coaching products, group practices, intensives, consulting, those are the things that are on the table. And I think we've done some other forms of like secondary income in this group, YouTube or our Facebook group, and you can search for those to maybe get some content ideas on other forms of like secondary income beyond one-on-one sessions to start this. I hope this helps. I hope this is straightforward enough. Leave some questions in the comments. Share a little bit of love. Leave me a like. Do whatever you want to do, so that way more people can see this and we can serve more people with some of this content. Attilio will be back next week and I'll be gone. So you'll get a little bit more of him and some of his perspectives as we continue to grow in this space. We'll chat with you all soon.